competitors are the way they are because they're built differently. And I don't think we pause and think about this enough. When you see the physique of Ono or Maruyama, their legs, their arms,
Mhm.
you're not going to be doing it like them. I met Kosei in a way. We're the same height, but we're built completely different. I remember afterwards we went out to dinner with the Mizuno team and Kosei in a way, and we had dinner, and it was a big long table. He was sitting across from me. His forearms, his wrists, his hands. He can grab my head and just crush me.
All right, guys, it's David Loshelder, Dead Bod Judo. Hey, I got a one of the more famous YouTube channels on here. Chadi,
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
you are welcome. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. I've been a fan of your channel for a long time, man. And let's say we were talking about offline. You bring a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different details, and just a different flavor to the judo world. And I think it's just unique. So I'm just curious, how you kind of started the channel, why you started the channel, and just kind of get a little idea from that. And then we could talk about kind of getting older and looking at judo in a different way.
Well, thank you, David. Yes, I was always academic in my life. I studied architecture. I used to work as an architect, and details were everything. One of the first thing that I learned in my architecture journey, I was in first year of university. I remember the teacher was talking to us about Miss Van der Rohe, and he says to us, uh, God is in the details. And some people, they say also devil is in the details, but uh, we're saying God is in the details, and that really stuck with me because you can find so many things. If you look at his architecture, Mises' architecture, you would see it's just a few lines, but the space that he creates and solely relying on the fundamental. He says, "I didn't create a new style. I just removed everything and reduced architecture to its basic and fundamental form." And that really stuck with me in everything I do in life, including judo. I like to take a look at fundamental forms and really go into details with them. Of course, everyone's going to do them differently, so that's one of the reasons why I love judo and how I tackle it the way I do, differently than I don't know, looking at competitions and highlights and the new upcoming stars, or the way people see it. Regular, I would say most people would like to see judo or jujitsu or whatever it is. So I tackle it academically. I really like to do that. I started because I was at home. My contract ended. I was a junior architect. They were looking for seniors and chef de projet, chief of projects. I don't know how to say it in English. And I remember I was just sitting at home all day doing nothing. And slightly before the pandemic, all I had was just going to practice. And I remember I just wanted to talk about judo, and because there was at the time that thing where everything on the ground is Brazilian and just the stand up is Japanese, and of course there was countless footage to really negate this argument, and that's just how it started. I didn't know I would be here almost 7 years later, so it's been a really fun ride, and the older you get, the more you appreciate and you see more in these footage that you've been combing through, even though you've been combing through them for years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, where do you live?
I live now in Paris.
Okay, you're in Paris. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in Paris. I just let everyone know. I'm from the USA. This is a international call, so this is like super cool for me
Yeah, me too.
to kind of connect that international look at judo too. And I don't know if this is still true, but I heard at least back in it's probably still true back in when I was training in the 80s and 90s. Um, that judo was the second most popular participated sport next to soccer, or you would call football. So
Uh, mhm.
more people do practice and play soccer but the second most practiced sport is judo in France. Is that still true?
Yes, and I think number one watched here in the when there's the Olympics. I think it's judo here. Here, I don't know about other countries, but here judo is definitely a big sport. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What got you into judo anyway?
I actually did a little bit when I was a child, and it there was I was such a helpless kid, and when I was growing up, my parents were always at work. My father, I barely saw him,
Hmm.
um, and I was very small, and I would go in, and I was just fair game basically. And I remember that one time the teacher, I was like barely starting, and the teacher showed us ogoshi. So I remember thinking, when that guy comes to me the next day, because he will, I'm gonna try it. And he started to, and he was coming, and shortly before the class, we would all be in the class, be little kids playing here and there, and he would come and pick on me, and I remember I picked him up for ogoshi and put him down. It wasn't something big, but as a kid, everything's big, compared to you. And he threw it. Like now looking back, it was a tantrum. Started crying, and he wanted to get up, and he started flailing his arms like this, and he was like much taller kid than me. And the teacher came, stopped him, and she was like, "Hey, I've seen you pick on him. That's not the first time. Go sit in your corner." And I felt so good, not because she took him away from me, but
Hmm.
because I stood up to myself, and I felt like I had a superpower. And as a little kid, that sticks with you. So, but then I grew up. My father left without saying goodbye, nothing. I was maybe 7, and so my mom would be working all day, and of course we couldn't afford these luxuries now. They're like luxuries, basically, and that really stuck with me. And in college, there was Aikido program. It was free, and there was Taekwondo, but I wanted the closest to judo. But when I finished my university studies, I was working. I can afford anything. I got back to judo.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that uh kind of growing up like that as a kid through judo, and because I was always smaller, and I had my friends who are just a bit older than me, bigger than me, and I don't know how I'd call them friends because they'd always pick on me.
Yeah.
There was um there was a time where I started judo, I started wrestling, and I never forget it. Same thing. I had a buddy of mine. He would just sort of grab me and push me around, and I started to learn some judo and some wrestling. And
Mm.
man, I hit him with a foot sweep. He went down so fast, you wouldn't believe it. He was shocked. Like at that point, he was like, "I'm done." And I think at that moment, I was like, "Wait a second." I'm like, "I can handle myself."
Mm.
It was like it was an aha moment. You did, like you said, those moments you never forget. And so I think it's really good for the self-esteem and kind of self-confidence. They talk about it, but then do you really have moments where you feel that way? And I think those are the moments where you can
Yeah.
kind of slam somebody, and and good. I mean, a good thing is you can slam someone, not hurt them either. You can kind of like get the best
Yeah.
and do it. So that's kind of cool. But we were talking about I mentioned earlier online, we went back and forth on some messages, and I mentioned that, the French have probably the best technical teachers that I've seen
Mm.
online, at least. Um, that and I'm just so impressed. And here's the thing: I don't speak French, so
Mm-hmm.
they instruct everything in French, so I have no idea what they're saying.
Mm.
But just watching the way they explain everything, just even physically, is just absolutely amazing. And I don't know if you had the same experience. I mean, I guess I don't know if you watched American teachers or not, but I was always impressed with, like, first of all, the French are really good at judo because there's so many people, and I think technically they're taught really well. But and like we mentioned about details, like I have things I pick up all the time from the videos from all the French teachers that I've never
Mm.
learned. And I've been doing this for, a long time like you. So it's really interesting. And these guys are high level. They're sixth, seventh, and eighth grade black belts. So,
Mm.
they've been around a long time. But their judo is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing you're talking about Darcel Yanzi, the
Oh yeah, yeah, him. He's really good.
and Clerget. Clerget is also very good. Not Axel. Axel is a competitor. His brother is also a teacher now,
Mhm.
and they teach in a way. I think that happens with a lot of people after they retire. They realize maybe I was hammering this. No, maybe I shouldn't have hammered this. As hard as I should have. Maybe I should have gone a little bit more this route. One of
Yep.
my teachers is Frédéric de Montfaucon, and he is world champion and 2000s
Uh,
bronze medal
oh
in
wow.
Sydney. And he was famed for his Yoko Tomonage. Even back
So good.
then, his judo was very fluid in his motion, and very aesthetically pleasing judo. And I don't say that lightly because if you want, we can get to aesthetics later. But he talks about now when he retired, he realized that there's there's a lot of movement that can be incorporated into judo. There's a lot more because if you look at competitors and as they're training, you'd see it's a it's a battle of force almost, and you can see they're trying to like really pull each other and then slap the back and pull deep, and they and you see them trying to pick each other up, grabbing their belts, or it you can only do that for so long,
Mhm.
and you really don't need to do that in the sense that sure, if you're strong and you're gifted like a lot of them are, and you find a chance to do it, but don't base your judo solely around this because you're a competitor. He always talked to us about creating that movement, making someone weigh 60 kilos less, or
Mm.
how to change angles. And he talks to us because he was at the highest level, and he says that there's a lot of needless things that I did that I didn't have to when it comes to, because when you think of high level athlete, you think of someone that's strong and fast and explosive, which is true, but it does you don't need to base your judo solely on these things because they will carry you for so long,
Mhm.
or to to this. So I really appreciate having someone like this because he's been there, and also it really confirms the the teachings laid down to us by Kano Shihan or Mifune, how they would move around, catch someone, and really talking about Kuzushi as if it's really creating something where it doesn't matter how much they weigh, it doesn't matter how weak you are, you can always catch them. And I really appreciate that. And that's the thing with watching too much competition, is that now we're thinking that that's the norm because we're constantly projected to it. We're only watching competition highlights, Grand Slam, World Championship, and we think that that's judo when in fact they're the quite literally the exception of the rule. They're genetically gifted. They have the best coaches behind them. They have the best facilities behind them, the funding.
Mhm.
But the norm of judo is us, the people who go to dojos and train 2, 3 times a week. I know that this is what we watch and we want to see something larger than life. I really do know that. But when we try to imitate them, it's different than learning from them. That's another thing that people would do. Like, for example, a Japanese comes to the to your dojo, or he's hosting a seminar, and then you look at and they're showing just fundamentals, and people are like, they're keeping secrets. Of course he's not going to show you everything, and blah blah blah. And to some extent maybe that's true, but these people are retired and they know that whatever you're doing, it's the fundamentals that will do you good. If you do his uchimata like he did, maybe that's not built for you, or maybe he did it out of a specific need, or his framework, which is you know the Japanese. It's all about the basics, all about the fundamentals, and their secret is just pure repetitions. That's it. There's no, some secret room where they're talking about how to make it fluid and throwing them largely. No, it's just countless repetitions done to perfection since the age of 3. That's it. And that's the framework that every master follows, whether you're a musician with your scales and arpeggios, the same with painting, proportions, drawings, the model drawing that's live in front of you, etc. That's mainly it. And when you're young, there's no getting past this. We're human. We want to go quick. We want the best chance in order to win or to get better because we're in a hurry. But then after you kind of have an idea what you're doing, you start to understand and appreciate more the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually having a conversation about that with someone at my school the other day, and I came back to judo, a little hiatus, and then I was older, had kids, and kind of became a dad, things like that. Stopped competing a long time ago, and like the different mindset of like always in a hurry to get better. I was always like the anxiety of just getting better and getting better and training harder and training harder. And then I came back, as an adult, as an older adult, and it was now my perspectives like, just the study of it,
Mm,
the dynamics, the physics, the inner workings of it. I mean, I guess now the goal is I want to be the best teacher I can be. So my focus is a little bit different. So it's much, much more academic. And it's a lot more fun. I'll tell you that because I got nothing to prove and I got nothing. I'm not training for anything, so there's no anxiety to
mm,
I got to get better type of thing. I can get better on my own accord
mm,
and at my own pace. And I think that's really kind of interesting. Where now when you think about judo, it's like okay, well, judo is it's so vast that like you said, there's that 1% of people that can do what they do at a high level competition. Then you got the 99% of the other people that are just studying it and having fun with it. So I think that's really a kind of a really important part to understand. Like
mm,
that's only like less than 1% of the population that can do that. That's and to have people understand that judo has it's I think Jimmy Pedro said it the best. He said there's something for everybody at judo.
yes,
Something
yes,
for anybody that does, no matter how old you are, no matter where you're from, there's something that you can do with judo, which is kind of cool. I
yeah,
think you get that in other sports. You know what I mean? You don't.
yeah, yeah. Even people who say, I'm too old for ukami. I'll do BJJ. That's judo. You're still wearing the gi. You're still doing newaza. You see what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's just in a different cultural context. That's it. Or you're just choosing one particular uh, expression of the entire landscape of judo. But not going back to Frederic and how he teaches. I'm not saying go fluid all the time because his classes say it's a lot of technique, it's a lot of detailing in something like kochigari or how to pass the half guard. These little details we go into them, but when we start sparring, it's the first 2 minutes. It's you attempt. I just have to go around the motion. Second 2 minutes is mine. And then maybe both of us we try to go, and if you do a good entry, I'll just take the fall slowly but surely. The last maybe round or two, they're really tough. I'm not saying every training should be like this, especially if you're 20, 21. Of course not. But I'm just saying that there should always be a room for learning. I spent the last month, I had an exam for my nidan, and nidan is a lot of exams here. So you have, of course, nage no kata full, tori and uke you should be. There's one technical exam that I really appreciate. We call it jujitsu, but it's self-defense. So you pick 2 or 3 attacks. You have to defend them properly with judo. And there's something like we call it prestation, and you take one technique nagewaza and one technique katamewaza, And I chose Uchimata. There's been a lot of raging debate about Uchimata lately, and the Uchikomi and the Nagekomi, and I decided I wanted it for my exam, and I really hammered it. So you have 2 minutes, you just go all in on Uchimata, and the jury would have to see you. It's not just show me that you can do it. No, it's not a, I don't know, brown belt exam or a green belt exam. No, it's, you have to show Uchimata in its entirety, in movement, the way you enter it, how you unbalance it, how you go from a feint, from a failed attack, or if it Uchimata failed, how you troubleshoot. And it was like this. And I just spent so much details on how to do it as effortlessly as possible. I didn't want to do it a hip throw at all.
Mhm.
And I learned so much just by preparing and trying to think of it. And you have your uke always ready. We don't train enough technique. And when I say technique, I'm not saying uchikomi and nagekomi. I'm saying actually dive into a technique and see how many angles you can attack it and how you can develop it. It will, like the month I spent preparing for that exam shot my uh, technical understanding of Uchimata. I would say if I did it just solely by training Nagekomi and the Randori, I would say like maybe a year or two. It's great. I was going every day before the training, just because I was Hizuki as well,
Mhm.
and I was just doing it over and over and over and over, and you see it differently. You feel it differently. You know that when you go in this way, everything else will follow. There's no more risk taking in a sense, and you know that you know competitors are the way they are because they're built differently, and I don't think we pause and think about this enough. They're built differently. When you see the physique of Ono or Maruyama, their legs, their arms,
Mhm.
you're not going to be doing it like them. I met Kosei in a way. We're the same height, but we're built completely different. I remember afterwards we went out to dinner with the Mizuno team and Kosei Inoue, and we had dinner, and it was a big long table. He was sitting across from me, and his forearms, his wrists, his hands, he can grab my hand and just crush me. So when he does his uchimata like this, just pull it without moving or doing anything, he can do that. I can't. So we have to also understand our own physique, how it is built, our own limitations, and there's a time for hard randori. There is, but there should also be a lot of time for really studying your own technique, your own judo, and not I don't know who it was, but it was jujitsu teachers. They're old. They were saying that you can't, if you want to train every day and really be good and take something out of training every single time you go in, it cannot be more than 40% intensity. And I agree.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people don't want to do that. They just think that hard work equals more results. That's not always the case. You can you can train 1 to 2 times a week where you really hammer it. I don't know. Again, I'm not a competitor or high level competitor, but there should always be a time where you take things slow. In Japan, one of the Nippon team members told me, Nage Komi, we do it after Randori, and we really take our time because we're dead, our hands are dead. We've done 10 rounds of Newaza, 10 rounds of Tachiwaza, and we do 30 to 40, 50 Nage Komi, and we have no other choice but to move around, really feel them, and also for uke to just relax and move accordingly. And that helps a lot. When you're tense, randori still hasn't come up yet, and you're doing nagekomi, you want to do it like raw and just punch the mat when you're putting down surite, and I think there should be a lot of time for technique. I'm not saying train like aikido or these non-competitive arts, but really we should, if you're also willing to train 6 days a week, twice a day for some people, then you should put a lot of time for technique. And I'm not saying it because technique is I'm not saying it because of first of all longevity.
Hmm.
Two, it's your own understanding of a technique is very, very, very important. The way you see Uchimata is not the way that I see it, or the way you see the foot sweep. Everyone has it differently. Look at the plus 100, how they sweep. Look at 66, how they sweep, for example. Or everyone is built differently. It's not just doing the major scale on your guitar over and over and over again. That's not how it is. It's I don't know how to explain it. Maybe I don't have the maturity yet, but just studying and really presenting a theme of my technique to a jury really opened my eyes to something that technique study is also very important. No, not just randori. A lot of people watch instructionals now and they say, "Oh, this is cool," and then in sparring they try it, and that's insane. Maybe sometimes you pull something off and you're happy, sure, but you really need to take the time and ask the teachers. And I think now we're just uh, inundated with so much. There's instructionals. You look at the explore page, you see so much highlights. You save it. You want to do it, and you want to imitate it. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. But as a color, especially as a color belt, who wants to be a color belt? Nobody. So I get why they're so in a rush. They want to do things more combatively. They want to drill the way you do it in randori, but they don't understand that when you lift like this and you move around, you create that line, you snap down, you lift. All this is a massive framework, and from it you can extract so much according to your own physique, to your own understanding, to your own judo. And people don't understand that. Now there's this craze about combative uchikomi, or doing it more functional, or whatever it is. And I don't subscribe to this idea, because I think it's let me, okay, you're a dad, let me go on this tangent and tell you a story. I think you would appreciate this. So we're now at that age where we can tell stories. So wait, which rank are you now? Sandan, Yondan?
Fifth.
Fifth dan. Yeah, there's always, I will always testify, in every dojo around the world, there's always that third to fifth degree dad who has a dad bod, who's very friendly, but he will just absolutely demolish you in newaza. There's just something about his dad's strength, we call it, that he will always demolish you in newaza, and his pinning technique is insurmountable. There's always that dad in some dojo somewhere. Always. It's always their newaza for some reason. And then when they're gripping, they're like a rock. They move one unit, and you cannot throw them. There's always that dad in some dojo. So I have to guess it's you in your dojo.
But I wish. That'd be nice.
Yeah, there's always that dad in that dojo who will just obliterate you in newaza, pass your guard like it's nothing, pin you, and won't let you go. And then in tachiwaza, his foot sweeping and kosotogari and osoto, you cannot, you just, you have to follow and fall. I don't know.
My
I'm really hoping I get there soon. So
my philosophy is I was training with one of the sons of the owners of the club, and he's a seventh dan, and we've known each other for many years since we were kids, and he comes up to me and he says, "Ah, Mr. Loshelter, very good technique." I said, his name's Eugene Kim, really nice guy. And I said, "Listen, Eugene," I said, "it's not how I do it. It's I can do it, is how I."
mm, yeah,
I
yeah,
was like, I
that's
can
true.
still do this. Not how well, but how I can.
Yeah,
That was kind of funny. And we laughed about that. But yeah, it's
yeah,
yeah, just it's great to you know, keep in shape and keep strong.
yeah. Also, good cardio, eating properly. I'm not talking about making the weight on the scale. No, I'm talking about eating properly. I cook all my meals, and having good cardio. If you go swimming or if you go running,
Yeah.
that's always good. And so I was back to my little story. I was 12 years old, and my mom was working all day. There was no father in the house, and I wanted something that really gives me a lot of joy, and also that would distinguish me, because I I come from nothing, and I wanted to learn. I wanted to prove that through my skill I can leave an impression. Even at that age, I was thinking this way, which is crazy. So I really loved metal music, so I was listening to a lot of 80s Metallica. That's my favorite these are my favorite albums. And I was 12 years old, and I I had a bass. It was very cheap, and a bass guitar, and I I was so happy with it. And I was learning, and I discovered tablatures because I couldn't afford the conservatory or a private tutor or any of that. And I remember going to the music store once, and I saw it's clearly printed at the store because the way it was put, it was "And Justice for All," the album. Are you familiar with it?
Mm.
It's an album from '88. It's a Metallica album. It's "And Justice for all the songs on bass tablet, the tablatures." And I remember thinking, I want to save money enough to get that.
Mm.
And it was just maybe two to $3. It wasn't something big. So I remember I got it, and you would read the notes, you would see the tabs, they would explain. And I remember starting with Blacken, the song, and I started to hear the melody, and I was like, wow, I'm actually doing it. And I started to learn and play the song, try to follow along. You built the speed, you build the rhythm, and I was playing eventually in seventh grade songs like Orion minus the bass solo at the end. Of course, I wasn't up to it, but I felt like I play music, and I was so happy. I was doing it every day, but
Hey guys, I got a new coaching system that I developed. It's called the MindCoach system. It's a 7-step process to help you reach your peak potential. We talk about dreams, we talk about goals, we talk about strategy, we talk about execution, mindset, and then reaching your peak potential. By using all of those, we can get you there, and we can develop a plan for you to be able to find your goals and to reach those and reach your peak potential. So click the link below, check it out, contact me, and then we can go from there.
as I was saying, I was playing a lot of music, and that's the only thing I had besides going to school at 12 and 13 years old. And I I was just so happy that I picked up a skill, and also self-taught, mind you. Fast forward 3 4 years later, I was teenager, almost an adult, and there was this hangout. Someone took me, and there was these slightly older guys playing in bands, and long hair and beards, and we sat down, we were hanging out, we were playing. I thought maybe I would keep up with them or just talk about how I play, and the way they were playing things, just the fundamentals, and or just very well known songs, not necessarily quick and shredding. No, the way the notes came out, the way it sounded, you can feel there. It's different than how I would do it. It would come out maybe a little bit fragmented or whatever it is. And I was playing, and they asked me, "Who's your teacher or which conservatory you go to?" And I'm like, "I don't have any of that." And they explained to me that all of us, we either had a teacher that was with us since we were kids every week with musical books, and or we went to the conservatory of the city, and we were always there. And says you cannot skip that. We play metal music, we shred, we perform live concerts, but those that we learned with our teachers and the conservatory, we cannot do without. And just going in and starting the songs, and because you think, because that's the goal, you want to play the songs, you want to enjoy them, the songs you love. And that's not how it that's not how you do it. Notice you've been playing for a few years now, and you feel there's a difference with how we play and how you play. And they started to actually talk to me like a little brother. And I remember I really appreciated that, but I felt so out of place and insecure because I've been playing for years, and I had nothing to show for almost. And back then, YouTube and tutorials, it wasn't really a thing. So, but there were these DVDs that started to come out. There was all the fundamentals of guitar and bass, and I started to learn arpeggios properly, how to place my fingers. There's a guy who's showing you all of it every night, every single night for 2 to 3 hours. That's all I did. A few months later, I saw them again. We played a little bit, and they said we can see the difference now. We can see that everything's coming out more structured, more beautifully. And I wasn't playing the songs differently. I was just got back, adjusted a little bit. Uh, the arpeggios, the scales, all these fundamentals of music, and then I got back to playing the songs. Now people are just so eager to jump steps in a sense, do more combative uchikomi or more functional uchikomi. Or I posted a seminar of Kosei Inoue, and someone left a comment that really stood out to me. He says, I like Inoue, but he's teaching Uchimata like it's 2010. And I'm like,
What's that mean?
are you kidding me? Like, they don't realize that this is a big framework and you can extract what you want from it. Maruyama said the same thing. Every day, 200 to 300 wall uchikomi, or thousands of or hundreds of regular uchikomi and nagekomi. Then when you fight, what your opponent is going to give you, you cannot know this. So whatever they're giving you, you can kind of adapt, and that's how it comes out the way it is. Maybe the elbow is up, or the wrist, instead of going like this, it goes a little bit more like this.
Mm-hmm.
All these little details. If he's more on my hips, then I'll pull the hikite more to my stomach. If it's ken, I push it down. You hear Yamashita, all these guys talk about these little details, but these you adapt as you go when you're fighting, but the framework will always be that framework. So anytime I hear someone doing away with traditions, or, oh, they taught us this, but it's a waste of time. Now there's a better way of doing it, or it's outdated, or it's obsolete, I often think of when I went to play music with those guys. It's the same. You cannot you cannot be decent if you don't give time to those. Sure, they're not what a combat or a fight looks like, but this is the tools you need to. So when you go into a fight and it's something you cannot predict, it's the same thing. And often those people now they're rallying. Do the uchikomi like this? No, just practice it like this, and they're rallying behind it, and they're making a lot of sense. All these things are outdated. I'm willing to bet a lot of them are in their colored belt phase. You want to skip things, you want to try, you want to imitate this and that guy, and again, who wants to be a colored belt? That's the thing, and that's a mentality that you can only get away, get rid of, is with time and truly understanding. Grappling maturity is a real phenomenon that not a lot of people understand. So let's say you teach nage no kata, harai goshi. People will say 1, 2, you turn, and then you sweep the leg, you sweep outside of the leg. And then as you get older, you realize that how you're placing your palm and lifting it, it's already unbalancing. And how you turn, it's actually not the hands that doing this, it's the rotation of the hips. And with it, everything follows. Then kake, or at the very end, that sweeping of the thigh on the outside, is truly that less than 1%. Because now we think of Uchimata as that launching of the leg, when in fact it's really towards the very end that you actually do that. If you're training, in the right way, I should say, or the right form. But and then, sorry, grappling maturity. I can show you a Kosei Inoue DVD, the fighting films. You see it. You see everything in front of you. You go to class, you get a little bit frustrated. You might pick up a little bit here and there from the gripping and stuff, but then years later, you go back to it. You're like, this detail, I missed it. This detail, I missed it. This was in front of me the whole time. Now I understand why it's being done this way. These are things that can only come through rigorous training and reflection. And that's just something that people will have to learn on their own. So, again, anytime I see people buying all these instructionals and doing something more functional for sparring, I always think of that, when I hung out with those musicians. It's the same.
It kind of reminds me also, I have a friend of mine who's a really talented chef. And when she was in culinary school, I said, did they teach you all this really cool stuff? And she goes, no, they taught technique. The art form came from later with her experience, but she had a base of good technique in cooking that then she expanded out into being more creative. And I think that's also similar where
Mm,
teaching the basic technique. And I think now even the words I'm using when I explain things, the physics of the technique, the angle, um just that language is just kind of come into my teaching, because it's like now I'm starting to realize like this is all about positioning and movement and angles and physics and momentum. All that stuff has to be in there. You start with a frame. Neil Adams talks about the frame.
mm,
You're going to sit you fall into a Tayatoshi, but you got to know where you're going to fall into to throw
yeah.
it. So that Tayatoshi, that frame has to be really solid to actually throw somebody. So like teaching the frame and like where's your body supposed to be, when you actually execute the throw. And I kind of picking up that, so you start to think like, well, then what do you teach first?
Mm,
How do what would be the best way to explain a throw? Now there's a million ways, but the one way that I've seen that I think is effective, that I've even tried, was put somebody in the position where they're supposed to be, where they end up, then maybe work backwards. You can kind of play with it depending on
mm,
the person, depending on how you do it. And I think that's all about, the art form of teaching and the pedagogy of kind of looking at this in a way of like, okay, how is the best way, the most efficient, effective way to kind of explain all that stuff and put it all together, and then have someone develop that over time. And I think that's super important. I think now it's not just like, oh, here's a throw and try it.
mm,
That's one way, but there's a lot of other ways that you can
yeah.
many there's a since there's so many different ways, then you can use like five different ways to show a
Mm,
technique. And I think too, like, um, I don't see like, showing it in movement. You can instead you have it in static, and you have it in movement. And there's ways of kind of like putting it all together too. And I think
mm,
that's also kind of
yeah. Also, everyone adapts differently.
like,
That's you cannot like Kosei Inoue can never teach you how he did his Uchimata or Maruyama. Now, my generation is Maruyama. He cannot teach you how he did his. They can only give you the broad framework, and from there everyone can just see their own needs. Chris Tadeguchi, I believe I saw a video she was talking. She said the judo I do is not some secret, or this is just what I built that works for me and my body, and that's that. At the end of the day, that's it.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is it. I think this is really important conversation, because I think that, I guess the theme is like,
Mm,
no, one size does not fit all.
yeah.
And development, people develop in different ways in different time,
Yeah.
and being patient with people. The training and motivation, how to coach people too. Some people are coached differently than others,
Yeah.
will learn differently, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So like playing all that in there, and
Yeah.
not having it. I think it's really important for, I mean, just teaching, coaching, and training, and just for your own development. How do I do that? And then attention to details.
Yeah.
Work on they talk about working on the basics, but if you don't know the basics and you can't relax, you're not going to be able to develop.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more example. So I do okemi the other night. And so instead of doing just regular ukemi, just regular falling, I said, okay, look, I said, just grab your partner, turn to the side and just do like kind of like an ukiyo-toshi.
Mm,
I said, don't throw them. Just put yourself in the position and your partner just falls over, just flip over.
Yeah.
And it was really hard for a lot of people. Now they can do the okemi, but
Mm.
if you put someone in front of them and you tell them just go for the fall from the uki otoshi, I'm even talking the kata version. I'm talking about just like a horse stance, like throw them like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing like how many people would freeze up and couldn't relax and go over.
Yeah.
It's like starting there where you're helping people just get the idea, because if you can fall really well, then the safety, my throws are safer because then I can do the technique safer because then you can give way. It's like stuff like that, where it's like that's the basics that I
Mm.
think really need to kind of be ingrained, and then you can actually flow with the technique. And,
Mm.
so I think we're saying the same thing in just different ways, but I just
Yeah.
agree that that's
Also,
super, super important.
also another thing, when you understand how in I often reference Nage no Kata in my videos because that's the foundation of Nagewaza. There is no big lift like this, or you go in and then you just see the guy go off. We're not strong competitors at the end. We keep also forgetting another thing. Judo was made by very small, intelligent men,
Mhm.
right? So another thing that happens or used to happen is, you know how I don't think how many people don't realize this, but they think in terms of competition rules. So if a guy, let's say, is too much like this and almost stretching out his arms, and you cannot get around it, you get frustrated. I don't want to spar with this guy anymore. Yeah, of course, if you're a competitor and someone's doing that to you, yeah, you're wasting your time. But also, you should also have the enough knowledge to know that this should not deter your judo. Now, in judo, if a guy is fully bent like this, a lot of people, if they're trying to go in or trying to get around, they get frustrated. And if, let's say, a jiu-jitsu guy or something came and started doing this, because that's a very natural reaction, they will think, oh, look, they couldn't throw me, or they barely threw me. Or then if you look at the basic forms of how you pull in someone, then rotate, and they will fall over, like harai goshi in nage no kata, or uchimata, how you pull them in, or sasae, or whatever. You will see that no matter what stance they go in, you can easily get them. Now there you see instructionals by Ishii and Shintaro, where the jiu-jitsu guy is like a wrestler. So you push the face, you pull, and then you create that, because they're going over like this. Then you create that space, and then you go in. So it becomes a ken, but you actually don't need to do any of that, with all due respect, of course. But if you look at Ono versus Basile in 2020, he just created space, pulled, and because Fabio was like this, he went over. All Ono had to do was turn around and just put his thigh as a block, and Fabio went over. So also, these are all within the fundamentals. Nage no kata, a lot of people don't realize just the time context. It was in 1880s. Think of what was going on in the world back then. 1880s, how we look at the world, not from a judo standpoint, from the history and the Victorian era. And then you look at how technically developed they were, or if you look at the trenches, you already had some of the best books of judo when people were dying in the trenches in World War I. So just how advanced they were and how much they had. But now with people getting stronger and bigger and more intense in fighting, and of course different cultures clashing. The Georgian wrestling culture is not like the Japanese fighting culture or the Russian or whatever it is. Now you see a little bit of these clashes of very strong fighters happening, and we kind of have to pause a little bit sometimes. Again, everyone is different. Pause, take a step back and remember what they left for us. That
Mhm.
that's some of the best economical way of doing judo. It's if we don't forget, it's jita kyoe, mutual welfare for self and others, and seryoku zenyu, the best way of utilizing one's energy in a sense. So let's not forget this one. So yes, people are stronger, people are different cultures, and But these are the two judo principles. Let's not forget that.
Well, let's leave it there, man, because I think that's a good ending. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about, all your philosophies of judo. Like I said, I'm a big fan and
Thank you,
have
David.
following your channel for a long time. So I really appreciate it. It's nice, great meeting you. And we'll have to come back and do this again for sure.
Yeah, of course.
All right. All right, guys. Well, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, click that notification bell, and get a chance, comment down in the description section, and we will see you in the next video.